just remember wisdom is a real currency. And the question is, what are you going to do with it?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Coach Tribe podcast. Today, we have a VIP guest, an exclusive guest. We have Mary Henderson. She's a personal branding and online business strategist with more than 83,000 followers on LinkedIn that has helped hundreds of industry experts convert their knowledge into premium solutions and go-to brands. Mary, it is a pleasure to have you here with us today. How are you?
Hi, Maria. I'm so glad to be here too. I can already feel the energy and I already know it's going to be awesome. So I'm ready for you.
I bet we are ready for you, and we cannot wait to hear all of those insights. Mary, I know you became an entrepreneur when in 2005, and you have many years of working with coaches. Is that right?
Yes, I've worked with small to large, medium sized businesses. I've worked with many coaches, consultants, right across the board, actually, Maria. And it's been interesting because you get an insight of the mindset of the different types of business owners, from solopreneur to, sort of mid the SMEs. They're all different, but they all, at the end of the day, want sales and to grow a business, at the end of the day.
It's that simple, right? That
Absolutely.
simple. But I am so glad that we have you here today, Mary, because this will be a vital episode, I would say, for our listeners, because they're going to learn how to literally launch a coaching program. And I'm so thrilled, and I'm going to pick your brain on all of these topics. So I would say, let's get started, and let me ask you this. How do our listeners can turn their knowledge, wisdom, and skills into a go-to brand and a signature program? What do they need to know first?
Today, in this economy that we're in right now, there's actually a real shift that's happening, because if you look at it, about 5 years ago, we were in this information age. Everyone was creating coaching courses, and just pushing this content out in the marketplace. And what's happened, especially in the last 3 years since the whole COVID thing, a lot of people were just pushing information that you can literally get from Google, and were not able to deliver results, outcomes, and transformation. And the key word here being the transformation. I was observing this for the last few years, and I could see that there was such a rise of coaches, and now there's a lot of them that have dropped off. And even the seven-figure coaches are not on the scene either. Why is that? Because they weren't able to deliver a transformation. Now, let's work backwards from there. If you can't deliver a transformation to a client or an outcome or results, you will not convert your paying clients into brand advocates. And when we're focused on defining our personal brand, our ultimate goal is to actually build brand advocates. That's the outcome of the journey that the client takes with us. So a personal brand, therefore, has shifted completely, because it's not just your LinkedIn profile. It's not your color palette. It's not just your font. It's not just how you want the outside world to perceive you. Oh, no. Now we have to look at it through we're much deeper and much wider. Now we have to ask ourselves, how do I really, really deliver a transformation? Because the client today, what they're paying you for is to reduce their pain or enhance their life. That's what they're paying you for. And when I work with clients, I hear this all the time. They always say to me, I just want what's in your head, right? And that's 23 years of what's in my head. And that's the difference. You have to be able to back up your brand and be able to say, this is what I do for sure. This is who I know I can serve for sure. And this is what I can promise for sure. So the interlink between personal branding now is your professional wisdom and your personal wisdom, the hero's journey, the personal stuff need to now merge together. Because when I'm working with my clients, it's not just the implementation that I'm teaching, it's also how to overcome a much, much deeper obstacles within themselves. And that is through my experience. And that's through my wisdom. So I can share that knowledge because I know that knowledge delivers the transformation. So can you see now that it's completely different to just saying, here's my color palette, here's my website, here's my LinkedIn, here's my Facebook. Oh, I'm a personal brand and I've got these courses for $499 and that makes me an expert. No, that doesn't make you an expert, because your client is doing their due diligence and they want the transformation. They actually want that outcome and will pay for it as long as you can show them the process that you can take them on.
I really appreciate that you started with this, because I feel like this is indeed a mistake that I'm seeing when I talk to lots of coaches, or that they highlight as a mistake from when they got started. And I think it's so important, to have this idea of what's the end goal, what's that transformation, what's that result. So rather than focus on the features and the benefits and all of this perks of my program, you have to focus, okay, where will this take you, to paint
Yes.
that image. So I feel like that's such a great way to get started. Yet, as someone who is just getting started in this industry, how do you know what's that transformation or outcome? Is that something that you create, or you think you can achieve? How do you portray that?
I think that the key with the transformation is that you actually don't know what the transformation is until you've actually unpacked all of your internal inventory. So we need to be able to see without a shadow of a doubt, here's all of my professional experience. Here are my passions. Here are my gifts. Here are my natural talents. Here is my personal journey where I've had to walk the road less traveled. What did I learn on that journey? What can I bring into the mix? So it's not necessarily about saying, oh, I know what the transformation is. People come to me and they're like, I already know what I can do. And then when I unpack all of their inventory, it's completely different to what they thought it was going to be, because a couple of things happen. One is that we have to merge all of the professional and the personal experience from the standpoint of intellectual currency. We need to understand, what does that intellectual currency look like in the form of experience, knowledge, skill set, the wisdom that you can bring from your internal, from your deep soul level. What can I bring into the mix? And all of this inventory then needs to merge together so that you can see for yourself. And there are patterns that will start to emerge. And then you start to see that, oh, wow, all of this inventory, I can actually do something with it. For example, if you're an expert in sales, it's not just going from sales into sales. It's looking at all of that intellectual currency that you've learned and acquired in a sales capacity. And what is it that you can bring to the table when you actually merge it with your personal wisdom? Is it motivation? Is it mindset? Is it strategy? So many different aspects. Anyone that's starting out, that actually is probably the most important part of the process. So it's not just saying, I'm in sales. Oh, I'm going to create a sales course. Everyone does that. So how do you stand out? I actually wrote something today on a Post-it note, and I said, think different. That's how you stand out. And it's exactly what I'm talking about here. It's not creating the obvious. It's actually creating the thing that is not obvious and going very deep and wide and finding that. Because when you do that, Maria, this is another interesting part, when you can actually find the transformation that you can deliver, then you're very clear on, oh, this is what I do. This is specifically who I can serve, or this is the problem I can solve. And then that's the transformation I can deliver. Now we eliminate that whole notion of targeting a niche. We actually eliminate that completely, because what you're actually saying is, hey, I can solve this problem and I can deliver this transformation. I don't care whether you're 20, 30, 50, in the US, in Australia, small business, individual. If you need that problem solved, I know how to do it, and I know how to deliver a transformation. So now my whole messaging has completely shifted from putting me into a little box to now I'm expansive. Now I can create impact.
The Coach Tribe podcast is powered by Penside. I want to take this opportunity to tell you more about Penside and how much value it can provide you and your coaching business.
Penside is an all-in-one platform for coaches and educators that enables you to quickly and easily build a highly credible page and sell your knowledge with one-to-one sessions, group coaching, courses, Q&As, digital products, and bundles. Payments, scheduling, video calling, client communications, and everything else is taken care of.
All it takes is 5 minutes to set up, and it's free. It's the smartest way to kickstart your coaching business. Sign up to Pensight today at pensight.com.
I can already imagine our listeners right now being like, yes, I knew it. I want my solution to be available for everyone because it's not just for that 30-year-old female with this job. So I think, again, it's such a relief, I would say, that, that is not to say that you don't have to niche down on this problem, because you have to be specific with the
Yes.
problem
Yes.
that you're
Of course.
tackling, transformation. But it's a different sort of perspective that I'm getting on this, and I like that we have that on. Now, once we have this inventory, as you called it, of skills, knowledge, DNA, if you want, like your unique approach to things, your experiences, what do you do with it? Like, how do you take that and turn it into something tangible? What's the next step?
And now we need to organize that information. This is the hardest part. This is my gift. Like, honestly, like I say to people, if you want anything reverse engineered, just give it to me and I'll be able to reverse engineer almost anything. I had a software company for 7 years. I literally am the algorithm queen because I understand that's how my mind works. But you don't have to be a software person or think like that. You need to just understand that all of that inventory that you've now unpacked, whether it's on an Excel spreadsheet or Post-it notes, however you feel is the best way for you to do that, now you've got to organize that information. The information needs to make sense, not to you, but to the end user. And so this is another important thing I want to say, Maria, and a lot of people don't understand this. How many people, especially in the entrepreneurs, say, I've got a mission, my mission's really big. That's awesome. But your mission is not your client's vision. What we need to be saying is, me, the entrepreneur, I have a vision to fulfill my client's mission. Do you see the difference in the language? So now that inventory that we're unpacking, that's the foundation. My vision, this inventory, must be able to activate my client's mission. So how do I take them on a journey and organize this information so that they start here, the client starts at A and ends up in Z, but when they end up in Z, they're a completely different person to who they were when they started at A. So we need to actually understand how to organize that data. I call it data because it's data. And the other thing I want to say as well in this, as people are unpacking their inventory, anything that is not natural to you, that you haven't genuinely experienced, and you're actually incorporating something in your coaching program based on something that you've read, and you're claiming that, that's something that you're an expert on, but you're not, remove it. It's not necessary. Your client will not judge you. Did you really, really experience that? And they're like, oh, well, not really. Take it out. Because you will be challenged. One client will say to you, yes, but how do I do that? Give me the granular detail. And if you can't deliver and support that with a framework based on your tried and tested experience, you have lost that client's trust forever. And you will never, ever, ever be able to activate the client to become your brand advocate. So we don't need to stuff the signature solution with just noise. Just create something, one complex problem that you can solve based on your natural state of being. In other words, I can solve this problem for sure.
What do you do if you want to specialize in something that you're not an expert in yet?
I would stay away from it until I've accumulated enough experience, but not just experience, Maria. It has to be learned knowledge, experienced over and over again until you are confident that what you're teaching 100% delivers the result that you're promising. It's different. I can't be somebody else. It's impossible. So where I believe we are in terms of our economy, we are in the thick of the wisdom economy. We are not in the information economy. We are in the information age, but we are not in the information economy. We're in the wisdom economy. The client wants wisdom. That's what they're willing to pay for, and pay top dollar. I'm not talking here about $499 courses. I'm talking here $5, $10, $20, $100,000 solutions. The client has no issue in paying that, as long as you can deliver on the solution. Now, the person that wants to go down a trajectory, but they don't have the confidence because they haven't actually mastered that area, well, that's awesome, because it means that you have to immerse yourself in learning that knowledge and experiencing that knowledge. And maybe as you're experiencing and you're having these transformations along the way, maybe a better idea is to create micro programs and sell micro solutions. That's a much, much, much better way, because then you can speak to that with conviction. And that's the thing, Maria. If you can't speak to what it is that you do and the problem that you can solve and the services that you can offer, if you can't speak with conviction, then you've got a pretty big problem.
And when you say micro programs or micro solutions, what do you mean by that?
I help my clients build what we call signature solutions. So it's what I would call an end-to-end solution. And these are generally, like 6-12 month masterminds. The client goes on a journey. They start at A, they get to Z, and the client is actually, I look at my coaching program. I have a 12-month mastermind. That's just one program. That is my signature solution. And so people are with me for 12 months. We have 2 coaching calls a week, but everything is systemized. You start at module 1, you have to do all of that implementation. Then you go to the next one and the next one and the next one, because by the time you get to the end, you have a fully fledged business. You have a fully, all your marketing, branding, your signature solutions dialed in, all of your digital assets are implemented, all your lead generation strategies are all done. So this is a macro signature solution. Now, what's beautiful is that when you're building a signature solution, within the signature solution, I also have 4 micro programs. So I can solve micro programs. So instead of me doing the signature solution, which is personal branding, your signature solution, building your digital assets, lead generation strategy, and also the energetics work that I bring into my coaching, that's the full thing. But if you just say, hey, I just want you to teach me how to build a signature solution, I've got a micro program for that. It's a very affordable solution, but you're still getting an amazing experience just by purchasing that micro solution. And then, of course, there's the personal branding. And there's all little micro aspects, still the same content as my signature solution, but it's just broken into smaller chunks. So now I've got 5 solutions, not just one.
Mm-hmm. And just to make it clear, so you would call a program, let's say the 12-month program that you have, and micro solution, would that be a 6 to 12 weeks program, or a 3-hour workshop?
You can do it either way. So, for example, my micro solution, one of them, it's a self-led online program, and you go at your own pace. So you get 12 months access to the modules. It's up to you when you want to finish it. I like to put a limitation and say, hey, by week 8, you should be here. But they get access to it for 12 months and they just go at their own pace. So there's no actual physical coaching in those ones. It's just, the lessons are so beautiful. And it's just like you and I sitting together having a conversation right now. They're very deep. They're very wide. I really go into detail, explain the frameworks. Then I explain exactly how you need to do it. And also have all of the supporting assets that they will need to complete that implementation. I don't want anyone that works with me to try and figure out, oh, how do I do this? I'm confused. I don't want anyone thinking like that. That's a part of my brand signature. When you work with me, you're going to get everything. I don't want you wasting time. I want you implementing and making money as soon as possible. That's my absolute driver. Your client might be going through a divorce, and maybe you're a divorce coach. They're not going to want to be coached for 12 months. They want to, they're going through a crisis in their life. So, they want the transformation as quickly as possible. So everything's in context, Maria. Everything has to be in context. Again, there's no one size fits all.
Got it. It makes sense. And I'm happy that, we have a bit more clarity on that. Now, going back to that person who is thinking to move and to join us into this beautiful world of online coaching, what would you usually recommend as a first program, or what are those first things they should put together? Is that like a 6 weeks program? Is it just a one-on-one session? How should they get started? What are the products that they should first offer?
Yeah, the first thing that they need to do, once that they've unpacked all of their inventory and they can see that they've got a framework, almost a skeleton framework, they need to go out to market and test it immediately. So there's at that point, you're not building workbooks and video lessons and an online program in a learning management environment. That is the last thing. You have to actually validate that you can deliver the transformation. Otherwise, what are you building it for all this time wasted and you can't validate the program, or worse, no one wants it. So we have to go out to market and validate it to a small group of people and make sure that we can actually deliver on the promise. So that you could test the entire signature solution based on what you've unpacked. But I wouldn't be doing it for 6 months or 12 months. I would say maximum 6 to 8 weeks. It's like an express version of the signature solution, but they still get hopefully the transformation that you're promising, but at speed, because you need to validate it very, very quickly so that you can then go to the next phase, and that is to actually build out the actual solution.
So would you say that that's it, like a 6 to 8 weeks program? Is that the first product that coaches should put together when
Yes.
they get started?
Yes. And that 6 to 8 week program wouldn't be the final version, by the way. It's just the starting point to get the validation. And then they would get the feedback from that test group and then refine the final version. So that testing version, I wouldn't be using that as the final version, because you're still going to have to update based on the feedback that you get, before you actually build out the final solution.
Again, such an important thing to remember, this idea of testing. You can't just, create something out of your mind, something that you think will work, you're sure about it. You have to test it. Like, that's the best sort of approach that I know. Go out there, test it, get that feedback, and iterate. And I feel like this approach works for a business program or coach, for a business, a startup, for corporate. It's just,
Absolutely.
testing is just at the core of everything. And I feel like, implementing this into your habits, into whatever you build, I feel like that's very good to remember. Now, with this program, let's say you put together this 6 to 8 weeks program, how do you get those first clients? How do you get those people you can test it with? Like, you have no maybe previous results, no testimonials. How do you get those first people?
This is why defining your branding foundation, I think, is very, very important, which is why I always start with that. Because when you actually start off with that, you need to actually put yourself out there first before you start to, you need to put yourself out there so people can get to know you. Like, at the very least, you need to get some recognition out, especially on social media, that you are that person that can do that. So I think there's a lot of misconception, Maria. I'm going to start a coaching business. I'm going to build a course. I'm going to build a website. And when I build the online program, I'm going to be a millionaire overnight. No, that is absolutely not the truth. What we need to do is we need to establish a foundation, and we also need to establish social currency. This is why on LinkedIn, I spent so much time on LinkedIn building my brand presence and my social currency before I actually started to be seen as the go-to person for branding and also, building online programs. And, and it wasn't overnight. So what I say to you is this. And the other thing is, just on that, on the personal branding part, it's not just, as I said before, your colors and your fonts. When I'm working on the personal branding part, it's also understanding language, messaging, language, how to actually write posts that can tell stories. And we have to start becoming extremely active on the platforms so that people can start to be drawn to us. And of course, if you've already got an existing list, or if you've got people that you've already connected with on social media, they're the ones that we need to start targeting first and foremost. And be bold. It's like we're going, head on and saying, I'm looking for beta testers for my program. It's a $5,000 value. I'm selling it for $99 or something. And I do believe you need to have some exchange, financial and your energy. There needs to be an equal exchange. It's very important. A lot of people don't get this. But I can tell you from my experience, it is critical that we have that level of confidence to say, I know I can transform you. I know I can do this. And my program will be $5,000. I'm going to walk you through this program in 6 weeks, and you will get a transformation. A lot of my clients, what they do is that they get their cohort that are testing it, and they'll say it's 8 weeks, but the first 4 weeks I'll give it to you for at no charge. But at 4 weeks and 1 day, if you feel you're getting benefit, then I'm going to charge you $400-$500, whatever it is. And I think that's fair. That's actually quite beautiful, because at that halfway mark, you either know that you've got the transformation or you haven't got the transformation. But go small. We only need 4 or 5 people to test it to give you honest feedback. And that's what we need. And most importantly, the way that you articulate yourself through your messaging is absolutely critical.
I would love to come back to messaging just in a minute. But first, I just wanted to ask you about, when you have those first people paying for your program, you said that one of the priorities should be getting the feedback and iterating your program based on that. How do you collect feedback in this case where people pay for your program?
Just Google Forms. Just create a Google form. You send it out to everyone after they're finished. Ask the right questions so you can collect that information. And it's really important, even in the last session when you're doing your testing phase, you ask everyone to take 5 minutes. You put the link in the Zoom chat and say, guys, I really want your honest feedback before we continue for our last session. Please spend the next 5 minutes. I'm just going to give you guys 5 minutes. Here's the link. Please, provide me honest feedback. I really would appreciate it. And you do it there and then. So then you've got the feedback that you need to be able to move forward. Good, bad, or ugly. It doesn't matter. We need the feedback because feedback is data. Data helps us refine our final solution.
I feel inspired. I don't know about you guys listening, but I feel inspired. Now, you mentioned, Mary, asking the right questions. Can you give us some examples of questions that we can ask in, that first iteration of the program?
Just ask questions. What were the 3 things that you took away from the coaching program? What could I have done better? What didn't you enjoy? What did you feel was unnecessary? Would you recommend this program to somebody else? If you were to describe what I do, what would that look like in words? So get them to tell you what they think you do. Get them to tell you what they thought of the program. What was their biggest takeaway? What did they think was missing? Right? These are the questions we need to be asking, because they're actually helping us refine our next version of the next iteration of the coaching program.
Now, I know you mentioned messaging, and I think this is so, so important, because in the end, your messaging, your social media presence, that's the key to sales, right? That's the key, building your authority. Like, how do you expect people to come to you if, you didn't create that, your credibility, or so on and so forth. Now, the question is, many of the coaches, they have experience in one field. Maybe it's nutrition, relationships, spiritual healing, but they know nothing about building a business or marketing, messaging, social media. Yes. What options do they have there?
It's difficult because there's a lot of noise out there. So you're competing with a lot of people that are basically doing the same thing. But here's the most awesome part about that, is that everyone in the same area of expertise is using the same language. You can almost look at their posts and they're almost a mirror of one another, right? That, to me, no one's standing out. If I look at 5 posts, they're 5 different people doing the same thing. I'm like, I don't know. I'm confused. You're all saying the same thing. You've got your bikinis, you're telling me you made $1 million this month. I don't know. I have no idea. I look at all that and I think, whoa, that's a lot of noise. I'm going to tell you what I think is the difference. Okay. When I started to focus on my true core wisdom, like really core, deep heart stuff, things that actually genuinely transform people, that's when I started to use completely different language, which actually is my true language, because that is how I would talk to you if I was sitting with you at a cafe, not being politically correct or safe or oh my, you can't say that on LinkedIn, or you can't say that on Facebook. It's just being unapologetically yourself. Number one. Number two, when you actually come from that place of wisdom, you do write different because it comes from here. It's not coming from here. And most people are writing linear posts from here. It's structured, it's obvious, it doesn't stand out. You're telling me everything I already know. Give me something I don't know. Tell me something that I've never heard before. Challenge my paradigm. Make me stop in my feed so I can go, whoa, I've never heard that before. And so we have to go above the noise, and we have to speak in a language that is our normal language. There's no magic wand here. I can give you frameworks. I've got frameworks galore on how to write stories and blah, blah, blah. I mean, of course, there is an art to how you write stories. But the point being is that you can't write awesome stories if you don't come from a place of wisdom. You just can't, because you don't have the wisdom to write from. You're just writing from a textbook.
So you heard Mary, be unapologetically yourself and own yourself. And I feel like that comes a lot with personal work as well, which I believe
Yes.
it's interconnected with the
Uh-huh.
professional work. But I feel like it's so important, this idea of stand out, you own your voice and put yourself out there as you are, or like let yourself shine. But now, more than that, and this idea of standing out and like how important that is to actually get at that attention, because attention is the new currency. Now, I
Yes.
wanted to ask you, what if I know nothing about marketing? Should I start in learning how to market myself or my program? Or maybe should I reach out to someone and maybe hire a freelancer to help me out, get a coach? Like, what are my options in terms of me marketing my program?
I think that a couple of things. First of all, you need to master sales, period. Like, if you don't know sales, you're not going to know marketing. There are two sides of the same coin. I cannot stress this enough. So many coaches say, I hate sales. I'm so scared. I don't know, rejection, rejection. And this is the problem. Not afraid of selling. They're afraid of rejection. So the first thing is we've got to overcome that barrier. It is so critical to understand that. Because to me, I don't sell. I never ever sell. I understand sales so deeply, but I don't sell. And so even when people are on calls with me, they're like, oh my God, I don't feel pressured. I'm not selling to you. And so we need to master the art of sales. We actually do need to do that. Marketing, there's lots of different components to marketing as well. So, of course, understanding how to write stories, I think, is also vitally important. Understanding how the different social media platforms work is vitally important. And also, Maria, and I think to simplify all of this, look at your competitors that are doing really, really well and study their content. Study it, reverse engineer it. I cannot tell you how many sleepless nights I have had over the years reverse engineering other people's funnels, content, sales pages, you name it. I have reverse engineered almost everything because I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I just want to understand, what are these people doing that I'm not doing? And you can learn a lot from that. So that would be my advice.
Mm-hmm. I feel like, again, we have this expression, a stone from my chest has been lifted. Do we have that in English?
That's probably similar.
But it's this idea, I feel like, again, I work with lots of coaches on
Yeah.
Penside, and I know and I've seen that many, including myself as a creator, we have this
Mm-hmm.
idea of reinventing the wheel. I have to come up
Yeah.
with something. I need to create, I need to design. But I think the biggest lesson that I've learned in the last few months is maybe not, the
Yeah.
receipt is already out there. You just have to emulate success. And that's,
Yes.
again, like such, because the solution is out there. As you said, reverse engineer, like take that and apply it into what you do. Now, I know we're
Absolutely.
coming towards the end, and I cannot believe it because time flew so fast and I had so many things to ask you. But one more question that I wanted to address was, what if you create your online program, but you don't have those leads or sales? Like, what do you do then? Because that's an option too.
That's a big problem for I think most coaches. is how do I get the leads? How do I get the sales? So, of course, we've got two options. You either do paid ads or you go organic. So, I love organic. I don't do pay to play. My whole business runs on organic marketing. But what have I mastered? I've mastered how to write. That's what I've mastered. I've mastered how to target very, very clearly, on LinkedIn, even on Facebook, Maria. It's all has to be strategic and deliberate. These are two very important words. So if you don't have a list, of email list, if you are just starting out, you're starting out. You have to just accept that. That's the first thing I like to say to people. There's nothing wrong with starting out because every one of us was in the same shoes at some point in time. But what you do need to do is get out of the mindset of learning all of the moving parts. This is very dangerous for two reasons. One is that as you learn something, it becomes obsolete by the time you've implemented it. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if it actually leads potentially, and I see this all the time, to isolation. So, what I say to people when they're starting out, if they have the capacity to do this, is you have to belong to a tribe and work with somebody who can hold your hand and show you the path to where you need to go in the shortest time possible. That is very important, and that requires investment. And so, we have to decide, therefore, are we running a hobby? Are we running a side hustle? Or are we running a real business? And if you're running a real business, every business invests in their business. So investing in a mentor or a coach or even 5, 6 coaching programs where it's doing it yourself, that's okay too. As long as you're learning and implementing and receiving feedback so you can make things better. You've got to learn from the feedback. And most importantly, you have to belong to a tribe. I cannot stress this enough. And because through that, you will understand how to generate leads organically or paid, whichever one you decide to go.
What can I say? We're all listening now to the Coach Tribe podcast.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I totally get you. And I think, again, this idea of the environment, the ecosystem that you build
Yes,
around you, that's detrimental. That makes
100%.
the difference. And investing in yourself, in, your development, again, that's one of
Yes,
the best choices that we can make. Now, Mary, I know I said that I would ask you about how do you scale your business, your coaching business, once you have it set up. How do you get those high ticket clients? But I guess, that's an excuse for me to invite you for a second podcast episode another time in the future, because now we already got so much, about how to get started with your coaching program, how to make those first steps. And I just wanted to thank you so much. I feel like we got so much out of it. I want to ask you, where can, our listeners find you? How can they reach out to you? How can you help them?
Well, you can go to my website, maryhendersoncoaching.com. You can book a free strategy call with me, maryhendersoncoaching.com/apply, APPLY, or on social media at Mary Henderson Coaching.
Mm-hmm. And how can you help them?
I've got coaching programs that are available. They're all on my website. I've got a 30-day program accelerator that's actually happening on the 28th of May. And that's a 3-hour coaching workshop where I'm actually going to teach you how to create, test, and launch a signature solution in 30 days. So that's a $89 investment, but it's absolutely, absolutely worth it. You get a workbook, and that's also on my website as well.
Mm-hmm. So you heard her, you heard Mary. Make sure you check out that program. Hopefully, you still have time to sign up by the time you listen. I'll make sure I push this in time. And definitely follow her on LinkedIn, on Instagram, tag along. And I'm sure that there are so many ways that Mary can help you out on your journey. Now, Mary, any last words for our audience today?
I always like to leave every podcast interview I do, and I always say, just remember, wisdom is a real currency. And the question is, what are you going to do with it?
I'm letting that, you know, go in. I'm absorbing that. Last question. How do you define wisdom though? Because I know we used it many times, but I just want to know what's your definition of wisdom?
I think to me, it's experience knowledge. I think that's the only way I can describe it in normal language, and it's experience knowledge in the objective world and the subjective world. It's both. And because when you're constantly learning, say, knowledge in your profession over and over, rinsing and repeating, you're going to experience the same outcomes. That's the wisdom that you carry. You can speak with authority on the outcomes because you've done it that many times before. But the same in the subjective, Maria. The amount of work that I've done on my inner self, but I've experienced the knowledge. It's not just consuming books. It's actually experiencing that subjective world and actually coming through at the other end going, oh my God, like, wow. And so that you can't explain because it's subjective, but it's in short, in normal language, experienced knowledge.
Beautiful. I love that we can end the episode on that note. So, what can I say? We should all, really leverage our wisdom, and we should be empowered to leverage our wisdom, because this is how we can empower others to be their best selves.
Absolutely.
So,
Oh my God.
Perfect. What can I say? Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Mary, for being here with us today. And I see you all for the next episode of the Coach Tribe podcast. Have a good one, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this episode.
We'll be releasing every Wednesday, so make sure to
subscribe
and rate us 5 stars where you're listening to this show to give others a chance to discover it too.